Hello everybody, it's good to have you here. I'm the Last Mixer, and welcome back to Primal Carnage Extinction for the next, well, technically not dinosaur guide, but rather flying reptile guide for the two flyer classes in the game, the Pteranodon, or what I refer to as the screechy burb, and the Tupandactylus, or what I like to call the skybonk, or perhaps even better, the actual meaning of the name, Tupan Finger, in reference to the Tupi Thunder God. Skybonk, Thunder God, whatever you want to call it, the Tupa has had some recent changes to differentiate it even further from its silent P counterpart, and nowadays both classes play quite differently. Little disclaimer here that I wanted to make at the beginning: while I know how to play both classes generally in most situations, the flyers are by far my least played class type. I don't even really consider playing them unless I'm just freaking bored, and I honestly still kinda suck at them. Kinda think of it like this: you can have a complete and correct knowledge of how an internal combustion engine works, but that doesn't mean you know how to drive a car. I have the knowledge and logical process of how to play the flyers, but the practical mouse and keyboard skill is rather lacking. If you want to get good at either or both of these classes, it's gonna take a lot of practice because the learning curve here is about as steep as Mount Everest. Couple general things to keep in mind for both classes, starting with the free fall system where if you fly into something, you'll drop. This isn't deadly as the flyers can't take fall damage, but it's finicky as balls as you can do something as minor as slightly brushing against a tree and instantly start plummeting to earth, which can leave you on the ground and vulnerable. Both flyers can land and walk as well, as you might expect, useful for landing to nibble on a corpse to get some health back, but I wouldn't advise walking around near any humans unless you have an extinction wish. Lastly, you can hold down shift as you would with any other class to fly faster, which takes stamina of course, and instead of jump, spacebar is used to swoop up and control is used to swoop down, which are just both slightly faster ways of directing which way you go instead of the usual mouse and WSD keys, which you can still use. If you rebind jump or crouch to a different key, then that will transfer to the flying controls as well. Flying fast as you weave through trees and diving behind rocks is essential to success as the flyers in order to avoid gunfire, especially when facing off against pesky snipers. Now, let's dive bomb straight into this one with the Pteranodon, a completely useless class if you're new to the game, but a truly annoying flying menace in the hands of someone who is experienced or, well, isn't me. The Terra has 360 health tied with the Novaraptor, and its main attack is a peck that deals 50 damage. A little high for such a quickly performed ability. I think it should be about 40 personally, but whatever. This attack is quite useful for pecking off low health stragglers and just general damage while dive bombing. It can 3-shot a full health human with the exception of the pyro, so if you land your hits, it's pretty damn powerful. If you don't, then just join me and peck the ground instead. It's a solid little ability and is best used when combined with hit and run tactics. Well, hit and fly the frick away, but yeah, you get the point. Next on the menu is what I would call the Terra signature ability, and in true Jurassic World style, it's a grab. How this works is when you get close to a human, you can right-click to grab them, pick them up, and truly show them the world. And then drop them, because humans are heavy. In the last update, they modified the grab a little bit so that you can now hold a right click as a sort of preemptive attack, meaning you don't have to time it as precisely as you did before. The downside here is that this takes a chunk of stamina, with the main grab also draining stamina for as long as you are carrying a human, just not as much as a preemptive grab. So yeah, this means if you run out of stamina, you won't be able to pick anyone up until it recharges, and if you run out while you're holding a human, you will drop them as opposed to manually dropping them, which is done by right-clicking out again after picking them up. This tends to mean that in a similar fashion to the Raptor's Pounce ability, you have to go for lone humans, or humans standing near high places or insta-kill zones. Generally speaking, insta-kill zones are things like large bodies of water like here on the docks map, or drop-offs like here on Forest Chasm. There are a couple of other examples like these chemical vats on transfer, but the general rule is that if it looks large and foreboding, you'll probably die if dropped into it, which is also a tip for real life. This is where the main strength of the Terra lies. If a map doesn't have insta-kill zones or at least high drop-off points like the walkways here on Contingency, then the Terra really struggles because it has to rely on both its stamina lasting long enough to pick up a human and carry them to a killable height, and also not getting one between the eyes. Obviously, as you play the game more and experience different maps, you'll get a better understanding of when the Terra works better, and I can say with 100% confidence, for the first time in my life, the Pteranodon is the most map-dependent class in the game, even more so than the Tupa. This is mainly due to the situational use of its grab and the fact that, like the Tupa, it usually needs lots of cover like trees, rocks, and buildings to do really well. Otherwise, it just gets shot out of the sky on the more open maps. Also, if a Terra gets shot right after it picks someone up, this can happen. Yeah, that's it. I just wanted to show this beautiful glitch. Last on the list for the Terra is its roar ability. Well, more accurately, its screech ability, which is a general reveal, meaning that when activated it reveals all nearby humans so that your dinos can rip them to pieces. Fun for the whole family, by the way. This ability pairs really nicely with any of the dinosaur classes because it's quite simply invaluable to know where your enemies are located. So that is the Pteranodon, a solid class that is difficult to learn and even more difficult to master. It can absolutely be fun to swoop and dive all over the place, dropping your foes to their doom, and fleeing when you realize that you're really exposed out here. Now, on to the Sky Bonk. Tupandactylus, rather. Woo! Take that, you little shit. Yes, yes, I am Doom. Son of a... I feel like the devs put the Tupa in as a joke, but hey, it's been around since the beginning of Primal Carnage Extinction's existence, and finally got some love in the most recent update, so we might as well take a look at what it can do. The Tupa's main ability is a passive ram attack that is activated by simply flying into people. Yeah, just fly in their general direction and you'll bash them all the way to Middle Earth. It deals solid damage and can send humans flying, so that's nice. This ability is super fun to get the hang of, and I'll be sure to let you know when I do. On to the Tupa's newly added secondary ability, which is called Ground Pound. I kinda wish it dealt 69 damage so I could really lean into all the joke opportunities, but I think leaving it at Ground Pound is good enough. This is an AoE dive bomb ability activated by right-clicking when you are a little ways above the ground. It deals moderate damage, and while it's quite a fun ability, I must say, much like the Tupa itself, the practicality is very rarely there. When you land with it, there is a couple second or so delay before you get flying again, which kinda makes the ability a risk-reward scenario in which you can dish out some good damage in a decent area, and possibly send multiple humans flying off of things to their deaths, but since you stop on the ground, it leaves the potential to get annihilated by the group you just plopped yourself in the middle of, so my advice is to use this ability after your teammates have already gone in and done some damage, or at least dive in with them. Lastly, for our little thunder god, is the screech ability, which does the same thing as the Pteranodons in that it reveals nearby humans, but in the most recent update it was buffed and nerfed a little so that the outline on the humans now lasts half as long, but it now gives a small portion of your stamina back upon activation, and while it's active, the Ground Pound ability lasts for 25% longer, and its stamina cost is less, both of which sound like lines straight out of the Kama Sutra. Anyway, these little tweaks don't make a big impact most of the time, but it's nice that they got added, although the nerf to the roar, in which it lasts half as long, it kinda sucks. So that concludes the Tupas section of this guide, and I gotta be honest, even with the added ability and buffs that it got, the Tupa is probably still the worst class on the dinosaur team. As much as it does pain me to say that, I simply can't say that I play the Tupa with any degree of seriousness, because 9 times out of 10 when I play the Tupa it's because I don't give a crap and just want to be a kamikaze dive-bombing hooligan, and you might be thinking, well, that's the whole point, and yeah, you would probably be right. But if I'm gonna go full-on palm-sweating try-hard mode, I'm gonna pick a class that gives me a good chance of success and that I have more experience with. I will also give kudos to the players that I have seen that are exceptionally skilled at the Tupa, because they can absolutely dominate with it. However, I feel like that is a rather small group of players, and the reality is that if you get good enough in practice, any class in the game can be quite powerful. Maybe the swooping, hit-and-run nature of the flyers fits your playstyle, and in that case I would highly recommend practicing with them, because they can be forces of nature in the right hands, and are certainly rewarding to get good with. For me, though, I rarely play them, and it just comes down to having every other class being more appealing and fun for me to play. I'm not saying the Flyers are bad classes at all. I think the Pteranodon in particular is very solid in terms of viability, especially on a map like Forest Chasm, although I would be hard-pressed to rank the Tupa higher than any other class in that same viability category. Is it fun? Oh yes. Is it practical? Maybe not so much. But at the end of the day, that is up to you really. If you love the Tupa with all of your soul, then by all means dive bomb to victory or death, my friend. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then consider giving it a like and subscribing. If you are subscribed, hit that bell so you don't miss any new videos. Much love, take care, and until next time, bye-bye.